Welcome everybody. First thing I need to do is just make an announcement so everybody knows, councillors are aware. David Green has resigned with immediate effect. He gave us his reasons, and so we now have a vacancy. For anyone who likes to think about these things, let me say that the clerk and I were given a few days advance notice by David, but he specifically asked that I leave him to tell the other councillors, and that's exactly what I did. So I think you heard yesterday, didn't you?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, we now have a vacancy. It means that there'll be an advert put out via ABC, which the clerk has to trigger.
I have already done that. The notice will be in the notice boards tomorrow morning.
Good. Excellent. That notice is for interested persons to make themselves known. And as I said last time this happened for people here, and I don't know how we'll otherwise get the word around, be aware that if this leads to a by-election, which it can legally, but if it leads to a by-election, then Ashford pay the costs of the by-election and then they charge them back to Wittersham. The average price is £3,000 and it would therefore cost every householder in Wittersham about £6. So be aware, there can be an election, but it does cost all of us money. Which of course doesn't stop democracy, it's just one of those things that happens. Ashford won't pay it on our behalf, in other words. Other than that, if there isn't an election, the PC, as it has done in the past, will endeavour to find someone who is willing to serve the village for now, until the next normal election, which is in 2019. The other thing to just announce now, before I start off on the agenda, is that I'm going to be moving items 6 and 7 on the agenda towards the start of the meeting between the preliminaries and the public session. And if they're passed by the council, I shall then explain the reasons and the impact of those two measures before we get stuck into the public session. So let's start off then with the apologies and reasons for absence, please.
None.
None, because David has resigned. He's not actually absent. Declarations by members of any interest, pecuniary or other than pecuniary. Nobody has any?
No.
Okay, so there's no need to approve or reject any applications. There haven't been any. And a reminder that the meeting is being recorded as it is every month. So we'll now move on to item 6 on the agenda for the council, which is to consider and agree revisions to the arrangements for managing council meetings. I sent a note out to you of proposals. Are there any points on it or queries that anyone wants to raise?
Not at this stage.
No? Okay. Right. We can always learn by experience, but at this point, happy with that. So can I have a proposer, please, to Sue? Sue's proposing, seconder Paul. Is everyone happy? Anyone unhappy?
Yes.
So unanimously agreed, thank you. And moving on to item 7, again I sent a paper out. Does anyone have any points or queries on that paper? No, everyone's happy. So can I have a proposer, George, seconder Colin? Is everybody happy? Yeah, we're all content, unanimous again. Okay, thank you. I wanted to do that because it's much better to do it that way than to talk to you about something that we might do, but it depends if councils pass it. It's better for councils to pass it, and then I'll tell you what it's all about. Right, item 6 on the management of council meetings, which we just passed, is about the way the public session at council meetings is managed. Now, the council has long had, in standing orders, rules which organise how that happens. I'm just looking for my piece of paper. Put it up here, didn't I? Yeah. We've long had rules in the standing orders on how that works, and we've communicated the broad effect to the public on little bits that are on your chairs in laminated plastic, which we call notes for guidance. That's been done since about 2015. And we also have in bold print on the agenda, which I've now lost, Good this. I'm covering pages up as quickly as I uncover them. We've also had on this bit here, this session is for the public to express a view or ask a question on relevant matters on the agenda. Questions that have been given to the clerk by 6 p.m. 7 days before the meeting will be answered first. The public are welcome to stay, thank you, and observe the rest of the meeting, but a reminder they cannot take part. And then we summarise it on the minutes. So all those rules have existed. However, successive chairmen and councillors have until now been willing to exercise discretion in their application to allow residents the maximum flexibility to present their points and for the council to be accessible in the way their concerns are answered. Unfortunately, that approach relies on moderation and self-control by residents, and this has broken down more frequently as the standards demanded. If the approaches to work satisfactorily it's broken down more frequently as the standards demanded if the approaches to work satisfactorily have been forgotten, and this deterioration cannot be allowed to continue unchecked as it's impeding the conduct of council business and breaching the proper expectations of councillors for freedom from abuse and harassment. The underlying problem seems to have arisen from a fundamental misunderstanding growing up gradually among some residents on the legal basis by which these council meetings are convened and held. In other words, a misunderstanding on that basis. Fundamentally, these are council meetings and they're held to conduct council business. The public is authorised, all of you sitting there, you're all authorised by law to attend them and to listen to the council's deliberations, unless we have to go into private session. But you have no legal right to take part in them, and I think you all know that. As a privilege but not a right, the council follows best practice by making a separate slice of time available for contributions from members of the public, what we call the public session. But this is for them to make brief representations on items on the agenda, to ask questions which might be responded to later by the clerk, or to suggest items for consideration on a future agenda. So far, so good. None of that, however, gives members of the public any legal basis to conclude that they are empowered to harass councillors in a council meeting, either individually or as a council, or to drive the council's agenda in ways that they might wish. That behaviour is an affront to representative democracy as it exists in this country, not an entitlement that flows from it. From now, therefore, the relevant part of standing orders, which we've always had, will be applied, as broadly explained in the notes for guidance and the bold note on each agenda. And there are 3 further points to make. Standing orders allows a maximum time for any resident of 4 minutes and 20 minutes in total. That doesn't apply, it doesn't appear in the notes for guidance, because when we did that, we were not seeking to apply it, but we will now. And so we'll change notes for guidance, we'll update it now we've passed the resolution this evening for next time. Secondly, most councils allow 3 minutes per speaker, but Wittersham PC substituted 4 minutes when the last revision before the recent one was made, and that we've not actually applied either time limit in practice, the 3 or the 4. For now it's the 4 minutes, but we'll keep it under review in the light of experience as to whether a reduction to 3 minutes would further assist the passage of council business and give a satisfactory opportunity to all residents to attend and make their points. We're on 4 for now. Thirdly, the council has allowed additional discretion to the chairman on time limits where planning applications are being discussed, as this is an area where residents' views are both important and germane to the decisions which the PC contributes to the planning authority. In other words, we may need more time on a planning application, and the whole purpose of us considering planning applications is local knowledge. There's no point in saying, well, you've got 3 minutes, that's the end of it. That does happen at the Borough Council, but they are relying on us for local knowledge. So for the avoidance of doubt, because we're now going to apply this, I'm going to read out the relevant standing orders that will apply to public sessions henceforth. And then you all know as much as I do. This is our standing orders, which now apply. We've simply been allowing them to be waived in the past. Members of the public may make representations, answer questions and give evidence at a meeting which they are entitled to attend in respect of the business on the agenda, and may bring other items up for future consideration at the discretion of the chairman. The discretion of the chairman is in there. The period of time designated for public participation at a meeting in accordance with the paragraph above shall not exceed 20 minutes unless directed by the chairman of the meeting. Subject to the previous paragraph, a member of the public shall not speak for more than 4 minutes. In accordance with the first paragraph, a question shall not require a response at the meeting, nor start a debate on the question. The chairman may direct that a written or oral response be given. Or, of course, a written one is later. A person shall raise their hand when requesting to speak. That is in standing orders. We'll see how that works. A person who speaks at a meeting shall direct his comments to the chairman of the meeting. Only one person is permitted to speak at a time. If more than one person wants to speak, the chairman of the meeting shall direct the order of speaking. That part we have generally operated. So we get back to... Okay, so that's all of item 6. That's the standing orders as they have always been. We haven't changed them at all. We've just said in our resolution a few moments ago that we actually want to operate it, but we will allow extra discretion for planning. Okay. The other one that we just passed was item 7, which is to consider and agree the council's approach to the use of its recordings of meetings. Now that was just passed as well. I can deal with that more briefly. It's about the recordings that the council has made of council meetings for the last several months. We started, I think, last December. You can see the microphone and we have notices and I read out every time that we're recording it. Those recordings were intended for council use, but a resident has asked for 2 of them to be made available under Freedom of Information Act. At the moment that's not actually possible as the clerk doesn't know how to do it, but steps are being taken to meet that request. Because there could be multiple requests for recordings, all residents can ask for, can I have this one, can I have that one, can I have the other one? And they're much more laborious to provide than simple paper documents. The council has decided just tonight to publish them all instead from the beginning and for future months, and steps will be taken to complete that as soon as possible with help being sought from outside the council on how to do it, which we don't think will take very long. The resident who requested the recordings will be notified where to find them on the internet as soon as it's done, and it will also be published in Outlook so other residents can find them there too if they wish. It'll be a matter of, if it all goes as we plan, they'll be on YouTube, and it'll be a matter of finding the Wittersham PC channel on YouTube and you can listen to them to your heart's content. I think it'll be good for night times. The resident, yes, I've done that bit. So let me stress, that was not the original intention. The original intention, which I think was we were all happy with, was that they did them for ourselves. And I must admit that I felt that we probably didn't have to disclose them, but I have checked, we do have to disclose them if we've got them. And therefore, the law's the law in this instance, and the best answer, rather than disclosing them piecemeal here and there, is that we'll publish them. We're not the first parish council to do this, by the way. If you go on YouTube, you'll find all sorts there. And to come right down to the local, Tenterden puts theirs on, I think, their own website actually in their case, but Tenterden publishes them. I've spoken to the town clerk at Tenterden to see if he felt that there were any issues, and he said, no, we're doing it, it's not a problem. So that is what we're also going to be doing now. And as I say, it's the most straightforward way of doing what we have to do because of FOI without burdening the clerk, who's already doing more hours than she's paid for, I think, more than necessary. She'll just do it once for every month and that's the end of it. Because once something's published, you don't get it under FOI. FOI is because you didn't publish it or you didn't intend to publish it. But from now on, we do intend to publish them, and we'll do the back ones as well to satisfy the individual. Okay, so that's told you everything there. I think now, unless anyone's got any points they want to raise on that explanation, which I hope was clear enough,
Thank you.
then I will open the public session. So we normally start with the planning applications. The first one on the agenda, if we've got anyone here for it, is the Oast House in Budds Lane with the oil tank. Does anyone want to comment on that from the public? No? Okay, we then come to 1 Forge Meads, and that's your house.
Yeah.
Would you like to say anything about your application? We've all seen it. I think everyone has seen it. Yes.
If anyone wants any questions,
To make it easy for us, we've also got immediately after you number 2 Forge Meads, and we know you're 2 semi-detached houses. And so far as I could make out, it looked as though you were kind of doing a joint project. Is that basically the position?
Yeah, basically, it's just easier. First, there's my idea, sound like the idea, so
do it together.
It would work together. So.
Job lot.
Yeah, basically.
Great. Does anyone want to comment who's not in 1 Forge Meads or 2 Forge Meads about either of those two? Nobody here. Do we have anything from the neighbour? Oh yes. Sorry, Phil, you've got your hand up. I beg your pardon.
Number 3, because I
Please.
understand Wesley next to us is going to do the same things, and we all get on very well. I see no objection at all. Provided the builders stick to the specifications.
Okay. We've not actually got number 3 on. That'll either be circulated or it'll be on for next time. It's just on the way. I know it's on the way. We've also, sorry.
Number 4 doing it as well.
Possibly in time.
Saving up.
Possibly.
We do in fact have a comment. The clerk, you've got that letter.
Yes. Well,
oh, when we get to it.
Yes.
Yeah, when we get to it. You're quite right. You're quite right. I'm jumping ahead. We'll get to that before we take our decision. Yes, it is a member of the public, but it's not for the public session. Quite right. Okay, so that's all of our planning applications. So who would like to talk about other issues?
Right, Village Green sign, it's disappointing obviously that we lost Councillor Green, because I was hoping to be working with him on this unveiling ceremony, so
sure.
It'd be great if we could have a little contact for that. It's obviously disappointing that we haven't got the rock and the sign as yet, but I am promised it's supposed to be coming this week, and I've spoken with Mavis. She's pretty flexible when the unveiling ceremony can be, but there's no point fixing it until we've got the thing really. So if I could have someone else please to liaise with, Mavis is keen to invite people who are interested in conservation, talking about the WKBS, the CPRE, the Kent County Council, department, I can't remember what they're called now, Public Rights of Way, I think, who dealt with the Village Green application. I think she would like the Kentish Express to come as well, and she's a benefactor of the Open Spaces Society, so I think she's hoping that they will, if they can't have representation, at least they will do some coverage in the Open Spaces magazine about it. So there's quite a lot to organise really, but until we've got a date, and if it's not going to be before the sort of beginning of November, we would be able to get something in Outlook, so perhaps that's something you could discuss. Obviously you've got it on the agenda and I'm not going to be able to speak in my 4 minutes, is probably up, so
no, you've got a little longer yet.
How many more minutes have I got?
Just over 2.
Well, I leave that then on that one, and I would make a comment on item 6, which was taken before the public session. Just my observations on that would be I find it very disappointing that councillors discuss something of that nature, which is about the public involvement in council meetings, without a word of debate whatsoever, or any knowledge prior to them making a decision of what they're making a decision on. I don't find that either transparent or accountable, but that's just my view. Okay, I'm in my 4 minutes now. Shut up.
No, okay, thank you very much. Somebody else who would like to go next? Hello, Anne. Yes.
Hello. Yes. I noticed that you put on the agenda again my letter to the Parish Council, and as I won't be able to speak later on when you actually debate it or bring it up, I would just like to reiterate that my letter was sent entirely privately. The sports club knows that, and I'm sure you must be aware of that. I mentioned the word I 8 times in that letter. I think you may have said it was on the sports club paper. Well, forgive me if I'm wrong. I thought you said that, but anyway, it was
an email.
Yes, you did say that actually. Yeah. So I'd just like to reiterate that was a letter sent entirely on my own behalf. It wasn't sent on behalf of the sports club or the football club. It was my letter, and I, as I say, 8 times in that letter I mentioned the word I.
Okay.
That's just what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne. Anybody else want to speak? Phil?
I noticed that the street sign has gone from the corner of the street and Poplar Road in the hedgerow on that side. Is that being sorted?
It was damaged when the hedge cutter came along. We had a nasty piece sticking out, so I reported it, asked them to replace it. So they have taken it away, and we're waiting now for a new one to come. And that's the position.
Good point, thank you. Does anybody else want to speak? Can I close the public session then? Thank you very much. Excellent, thank you. So we now move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which everybody has had. Who's got any points on them? Anything? There was one I noticed, but I'm just wondering if it got changed in a subsequent version. Was the that's the September one. Where's my October one?
No, September. They won't have October
it is
yet.
September. It is September. There was a planning decision. I thought that it didn't actually say what happened to it. Oh no, it's on that's on the minutes. It's here. It's on the minutes. Decisions received, and it didn't say what the decision was.
Which one? 12 Poplar Road.
No, it's this month's minutes.
So it's not you mean the agenda?
On the agenda, yes. Sorry, I'm using the wrong word. So we're not actually dealing with the minutes at the minute. We are dealing with the minutes, but don't worry about the mistake on the agenda, which triggered one thing triggered the other in my mind. So anything on the minutes that anyone can see? Are they approved by everybody? Yeah. Okay. Can I sign them? Yep. You want to sign it here, don't you?
Yes, please. That's fine.
Date it.
Yep.
And then
yep, don't need another bit.
Don't need the other bit. Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Good. So that's the minutes done. So matters arising. Parking at the Ellen Terry Museum.
I don't have anything further on that yet.
Okay. The village green sign. Miriam just raised the point that you can respond to.
Yes. I chased it. Well, in fact, I reported to Rhino Rock that Alf had dug the pit ready for it because we thought it was going to be done the last week in September, if you remember. So he had it ready, so I informed them, but their sign writer has been receiving chemo, so he's been delayed in doing it. But I hadn't heard that it was due to be done fairly soon, so, and they should contact us. Well, I've asked him to, so that we can put bollards out. I've got the bollards so that he can put them so that the vehicle can get up close to the area. That's what I would like. We do need somebody to liaise with Miriam over this. I'll
And because
do
we
it.
haven't got anyone at the moment, so you'll
I'll
do.
do it. You'll do it? Excellent.
Brilliant.
Thank
you,
you, George.
George. Very kind. It's handy, of course, because you're in the village, which Clark isn't. Good. So that's nothing else on the village green sign really until we get nearer to it and the event that Miriam has in her mind with Mavis. Okay. Volunteer support warden.
Right, if you remember, we said that I would write to Paul Linstead, who was the chap that was seemed to be organising it all, to say that we were a bit concerned that it wasn't going quite as well as it could be. And he's come back to say that we originally started the training in August, to which Lee attended, but due to school holidays, Lee wasn't able to commit over that period until her children went back to school. I'm aware that Lee knows her area better than any warden, but on the ground training with our wardens doesn't necessarily have to be in her area. Lee is not far from completing the training. She is attending her first aid course next week, and I am also aware that she is organising an e-safety event with Joe Voss in the school. I will ensure Lee gets everything she needs and the extra warden time she requires ASAP. I'm also ordering all their uniform and equipment next week, so hopefully, all going well, Lee will be fully up and running. I also asked the sorts of things that she would be expected to do, because I wasn't quite sure whether we all knew. So he said Lee's main role will be to support the wardens, the parish council and the community by providing a visible presence, attending local events, signposting issues and concerns to the relevant agencies, initiating simple projects to help solve community issues, support our most vulnerable, scams, etc., and to provide intel to the authorities that could help reduce any crime and antisocial behaviour. That's what the ASB stands for, I presume. So that's all encouraging. Perhaps could I suggest that we just adjourn, because Joe didn't have a chance. Normally during our public session,
You're quite right.
Joe.
She should have done, yes.
So could we perhaps do it?
Let me just say what I had on the volunteer support warden, and then we'll give Joe the opportunity in an adjournment to add anything. Lee rang me up last night at home. She was in good spirits. She had just attended her first aid course yesterday. I didn't quite get to the bottom of it. There were either 4 or 5 which did or didn't include her, or that may have included the one who didn't come because he or she was sick, but it was that kind of number. We remember they were trying to get about a dozen, so the message I take from that is, here we go again with Wittersham really out in front. You know, we're a little village and we've managed by dint of our own efforts to actually get a potential warden. And as I say, she did the first aid course. She's had a few hours of practical training with experienced wardens, including yourself. It's not been as many as it ought to have been for various reasons. One of them was not available when she should have been doing it, and so on. But she has been put on to, is it another Joanna who's the warden in Lyd,
Yes,
like yourself?
She started off as a volunteer.
Yeah, well, she was a volunteer somewhere. She came to the launch when I was there at the launch with Mike Hill, the county councillor, a very, very keen volunteer, and then she applied for a full-time post, so she's the same as Joe now, but she's in Lyd. Well, our one, Lee Phelan, is going to go out with Joanna in Lyd to get a bit of a view of how things are going. That was thought of as being Friday, except now Lee's got to work all day in the nursery, so it's going to be next week. And she's looking forward to that. I think that will be very helpful. With what Paul Linstead has said, you know, if he's getting the uniform and he feels that she's near enough trained, I think there'll be an opportunity for her to take advice from other people, but she can start doing something, because she's been getting frustrated at the time that KCC have they've probably taken about 6 months now from beginning to end, and they've not done very much in the 6 months. It's not been great, but there we go. These things are as they are. So anyway, that's all I can say. So I'll now adjourn for a public session again for Joe to comment on that. Off you go.
Okay, yes, so unfortunately I had a trapped nerve throughout most of August and part of September, so a couple of these sessions that I've arranged to meet up with Leon.
Of course, yep.
On the occasions that I have met up with her, we've been out and about in the village, we've looked at various things such as fly tipping, there's a water leak up on the main road which I believe has been on and off for quite some time, so we're looking at trying to progress that to deal with that as well. We've been into the school and Lee's set up to do some reading with the children as part of involvement with the school, and we've arranged to do an e-safety talk between us in the spring. She's also been in touch with some people who are keen to set up a youth club again. I'm not aware of who they are at the moment, but I'm letting her take the lead on that, but of course I'm happy to be involved with that as well.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. And I think it's quite good that she's going to be visiting Joanna and Lyd, because she started off as a volunteer support coordinator. And so she's more aware of what sort of things the volunteer support wardens can get up to.
Indeed, the second tier, yes. Did you mention, I'm not sure if you mentioned it when I was thinking of something else, that I gather you called in some fly tipping that you found when you were with her, so she knows how to do that as well.
Yeah, indeed, yes.
Okay. Anybody got questions for Joe? Yes, Dave, Alan?
I mean, it's about fly tipping, because you brought to mind that I live at the west end of the village at Poppensheath. There's a habitual fly tipper. Every time I clear it away, he goes and puts some more there. So it's become sort of self-perpetuating, and I think he must watch me. Because as soon as I've been out there with a trailer and disposed of it all, he puts another lot there. What would be your advice?
Do you know who's doing it?
I have no idea.
So you don't actually see them doing it?
No, I don't see them doing it. It just appears as soon as I've removed one lot, he puts another lot there.
Can you let us know where you're tipping it, Alan?
I mean, I've tried to outwit him or her, but so far I've failed dismally.
Yeah, I mean, really, in order to catch them, we need to be able to
I thought of camping out, sticking out there.
Get the registration number.
I think, Alan, a good point here is, if you noticed in the notes I did on the Ashford Forum from last week, they've just taken on a new enforcement company, a contractor, and they have said that they can do surveillance. So I think well,
I was just going to say that there are various
we can ask, can't we?
things available to get cameras that can be put in place for somewhere where people have done.
Even in the country, it costs Ashford money still. So
there are three very nice, very large, tall pine trees on the right just before Poppensheath, and you put them in behind that in the field.
Right.
So are they being dumped on private land as opposed to on?
Well, yes, it is. It's partly on mine and partly on the farmer's land.
Oh, I see. Oh, well, they're not so interested in that.
Yeah,
They'll always say that's for you.
Because the council.
The Ashford is concerned with it on public property.
Yes.
Yeah, this is on private farmland.
The only answer you've got to that is to stop them getting in.
But I wouldn't mind once, perhaps, but it's the recurrent nature of this behaviour.
Yeah. Because it's recurrent, I'm sure they'd be quite happy to help with surveillance. If it's happening every time you clear it, then they may well be amenable to do that.
I sort of felt we had me on this a bit.
Okay.
Is there any way that you'd be able to put up a camera?
I'm sure there would be, but then, yes, I'm sure there would on a tree, actually.
Because if you could get a registration number, I can certainly sue it.
Yeah, well, I'll work on that.
Okay.
Can I just add something? You mentioned the youth club as well. It's Andrea Harvey that's talking about setting up the youth club, and Jasmine Simmons. I've been in contact with them and sent them some information about what they need to do that, and I know she's in contact with Ashford Borough Council at the moment, trying to get some guidance from them. So as soon as they've done that, then they'll get back to me and we'll see what we can move forward.
Good. Okay, I'll close that bit of public session then, and we'll carry on. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is Mrs. Anne Beeching's letter, the It's just come back on the agenda because we promised last month when we had that other discussion that if we were to do anything it would have to come back on the agenda, as Miriam pointed out. So here it is, and the clerk has looked into what she promised to do.
Yes. During the last meeting, Mrs. Lewis challenged me over the wording I had used on the agenda with regard to the letter I had received from Wittersham Sports Club, stating that it was clear that Mrs. Anne Beeching had written the letter to the council as an individual, not on behalf of the sports club, and that I should have written that that's what I believed to the sports club. I did not have Mrs. Beeching's letter with me and said, if you remember, that I would write to the sports club if, as had been said, it wasn't written on behalf of the sports club. After the meeting, I forwarded the letter from Mrs. Beeching to you all. It came in the form of an email, so not on headed paper, but it ended, yours sincerely, Mrs. Anne Beeching, Junior Football Representative, Wittersham Sports Club. I have informed Mrs. Lewis of this, but she still maintains that nowhere does the letter indicate that Mrs. Beeching is speaking on behalf of the sports club. I have suggested that Mrs. Beeching lets the sports club committee know. As you will have seen, although on the face of it Mrs. Beeching's letters appears to have been written on behalf of the sports club, I have made it clear in the minutes that the letter wasn't intended to show that. I don't believe there's any further action to
Yeah, that's
take.
basically just the fact that Mrs. Beeching said she had written it in a personal capacity, and you put that in the notes of the public session. I think the problem here, frankly, is the use of the word representative implies representing, but I take your point tonight that it said I several times. As far as the council is concerned, we treated it the same either way. We just replied to you. We didn't reply to the sports club. We didn't, I say we, I mean the clerk does it on our behalf. Didn't reply to the sports club, didn't copy it to the sports club, didn't ask the sports club what the letter was about. We treated it as though it was yours, so it didn't really make any difference to us. The sports club have decided to write and say, for the avoidance of doubt as it were, it wasn't written on their behalf. Well, actually, you're in agreement on that, but they don't think it was on the behalf of the sports club, and you say the same thing. But if you wanted to, obviously it's the sports club you should direct to, as far as I can see. And I think really we've had a little sort of storm in a teacup there, really, because but thank you for the assurances you've given us. Okay, enough said. Everyone happy with that? Right,
Yeah.
good. So we move on then to the planning applications. Because I know that number 1 Forge Meads have got to go soon, we've got another 7 minutes before your 45 runs out. Shall we deal with 1 Forge Meads and probably actually two Forge Meads at the same time? Does anyone have any comments to make about them?
I noted Phil's comments tonight, and I had a look at the plans this week. I've got no objection whatsoever.
Okay, and this is where you got that letter?
Yes, this is from number 35, Forge Mead, so it's people at the back that are more likely to see it than anyone walking past. And it was from Mr. Clark, and he says he has no objection to the proposed extensions.
I think there'd only be any chance of objections if only one of the houses were doing it. The fact they're both doing it and it's going to fit together anyway. It's
Yes, and that was my view, but I looked at both plans, which are identical, basically, and I was more than happy.
Can I just add perhaps at this point that I have now received the one for number 3, which is obviously the same. So I was going to circulate it just to see what your comments were after we found out what neighbours and things said about this one, but if you're happy that I can say the same for this one, because we'd have to either have another meeting because it's before the next one, 29th of October they want the comments by.
Is it the
But
same?
it's the same.
It's available on the web as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, it might be relevant to us to what number 4 is thinking.
Yeah.
Well, Phil's just given us number 4. So.
Not at this moment.
No, we had, but he did actually comment on number 3s, not the other 2.
Yes.
So,
which I think could be summarised as saying he had no problems with the principle of the thing, providing that the specification and the builder follows it.
Yeah.
And there's an issue of party wall, which is a matter for the 2 neighbours to deal with the party wall surveyor. Okay, so can I take it then that we are all satisfied with 1 and 2?
Yes.
Thank you. So that will be reported back as supported. You can stay for as long as you want in the meeting. You're very welcome. But I understand if you don't wish to.
Got an excuse to go over. That's right. I said use your excuse if you've got.
Yes.
No, they're fun meetings, George. That's not the right attitude, you know.
Okay.
Encouraging
Thank you for coming,
people.
Joe. Okay, so we'll now go back one notch and talk about the Oast House Buds Lane, the replacement of the, thank you for coming, the existing oil storage tank with a modern plastic bunded tank and the existing septic tank to be replaced with a packaged sewage treatment plant. Anyone got any queries, comments?
It's got to be
True.
essential work, hasn't it?
It's got to be.
I would take it as essential work.
Yeah. The
No
package,
problem.
septic tank, package sewage
Sewage
treatment
treatment
plant
plant.
is better than the septic
Yes.
tank,
Yes.
arguably.
Yes.
Certainly less unneighbourly than having a sludge gulper come along every so often and stink the place out. Thanks for coming, Mary.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Right.
I think for all the right reasons, I would suggest we recommend it.
Yeah,
I agree.
indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're all in support of that. Thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to, well, number 6 and 7 are the two bits of boilerplate that we did. I think all I would add to that, just responding to Miriam's comment that she was disappointed in the fact that it went through without any debate. I think, and some of you may have the same view or not, essentially we've not changed anything. All we're doing is saying that the rules that we've got, we do actually mean to use as far as the public meetings management, public session management is concerned. Recordings is a change, but we've got to do that practically. But as far as the management of the meetings is concerned, we simply always shrunk from doing that because we hoped that the other system would work better. But as it has ceased to work better, then this is the alternative, and we'll learn by experience.
And we had the opportunity to debate if we'd wanted to. We'd had the information in advance.
Exactly
and
right.
It was on the agenda. So.
Yeah, I think that is one thing that those of us who go back far enough, which actually is Sue and Paul, I have sought, even when I was vice chairman, to actually get far more done on papers in advance, rather than just have a chat here and no one's quite sure what was agreed. And on one famous occasion, which I won't go into in detail, Paul actually forgot what had been agreed.
Another one.
Yeah. But I think the papers help. It's a pain having to write them, but at least we've got a paper trail, and it does speed things up in some ways. The only thing was I had to go through it then for the benefit of the public. Okay, thank you. And the recordings, we'll get on with that as soon as we can. And when I say as soon as, I mean soon. So the donation requested by the Royal British Legion Poppy Appeal.
No.
Oh, have I jumped one?
No, you're correct, but they didn't request.
We
all right. We just want to make a donation.
That's right.
Yes.
How much do we normally use?
£100.
£100. For which they then provide the wreath?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. They provide the wreath for the ceremony out of the £100.
Yes, a year. It might have been last year. It was John Jordan that organises that said he would send me the invoice, and I said we don't work that way. We give a donation, which actually comes out of the chairman's allowance.
Indeed.
We can
Producer then.
Yeah.
Sorry?
We can afford it.
Yes, we can.
Well, the chairman can.
The chairman can. Yes. Chairman's allowance. Yes, it is.
Worth mentioning, just to remind members of the public. Yeah, worth mentioning for members of the public in case they don't realise. They probably all do, and for any councillors who don't. We have a budget for a chairman's allowance. The chairman never gets his sticky fingers on a penny of it. It is just a way of budgeting for odds and ends that you can't really put anywhere else. So a donation is $250 a year, and 100 goes straight off to the Royal British Legion, and then a few tens go for the refreshments at the Christmas meeting in December and the the public meeting that we have to have in May. And if there's anything left over, it usually goes for something or other. But that it's called the chairman's allowance, but it is a bit misleading. It's just a name.
Propose £100?
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Everyone happy? Yeah. Good. Thank you. now we get to a meatier one, the quote for the repair of the churchyard perimeter wall. Did it come in?
It did.
Good.
Chased.
And which part of the wall? Have you
This
got
is the piece on the corner.
Right in the corner.
Yes, which is
In the back, down
that
the
was
back alley.
Not the
getting to
original
fall.
bit.
No, this is where the pieces were falling
No,
out,
right,
and it's
yeah,
right on the
yeah,
public right of
yeah.
way, a narrow bit, whereas the other
Yeah.
isn't. And it's where Alf had taken a lot of the ivy off and cleared it, and he's now removed it from the churchyard. Took a bit. Right, sorry for the delay. I will confirm this in a written quote. This is it. Mark and I have discussed your wall at length. Mark is the stonemason that I met on site. And the problem, of course, is until it's done, we don't know how much work will be required to get it down and then rebuild it. But we both thought that 2 weeks should sort the corner out and get some of the repointing done as well. With that in mind, and assuming we can salvage all materials on site from what we take down and what's fallen down already, then labour and materials for 2 blokes for 10 working days will be £3,750 plus VAT. We could get to you within 4 weeks. Well, you may remember in reserves for the churchyard project we have 3,525, which we have put aside for
We have got the other wall to do
reboarding.
as well.
Yes, but we did say at the time that it will be done in pieces, so each year, so that this is what we budgeted for the piece down the other end. But this obviously is more important because this is a safety issue.
Yes, that's what the question I was going to ask. It was the safety issue.
Yes, so this is the more important
Yes.
part.
Right.
Because it's where it's probably only, well, it's not as wide as this
Another
bit,
piece, yeah.
whereas down the bottom it's where the paddock is, so it's not going to hurt anybody where that is, but where's this?
Well, no, that's more or
This
less
could-
fallen down anyway. It's not going to
Yes.
fall anymore, is it?
No.
I don't think there's any question this has got to be done. I'm a bit worried that it seems to be inordinately slow and expensive. Maybe, it is really difficult to do, but it seems to be a hellish long time.
Are there any other quotes we can?
It's
say?
difficult to find stonemasons
It is
because it's not it's not your ordinary wall, and it's the same people that were used for when the Lich Gate came down and they did all the repairs
they
there.
do.
And rather than one of our local, very good traders like Rayfield or
Yes, it has to be.
so he
Unfortunately.
he wouldn't be. I mean, as you know, he's extremely good.
I'm going to say he's good at what he
bricklaying,
does, but
I would
yes.
thought he's probably pretty good at stone repair, but whatever. He's turned his hand to these things, and I would guess he'd be more reasonable.
I'm sure it'd be more reasonable, but it's when it comes to the church wall, we have to do like for like. It can't be anything else, otherwise we're into faculties and things. We can only do like for like. And as the other one has already been done, and I spoke to Caroline Pinchbeck about that, and she agreed that was the best way to go.
Yeah, I think the problem is the 10 days. 10 days for 2 people. It's not the rate per day. It's probably not unreasonable. It's taking a 4-man weeks.
That's a month,
It's the
effectively,
worry,
isn't it?
yeah. And
What length of wall is it? Roughly?
It's, what is it, this high,
Yeah.
and it comes sort of from here round, but it's on a bend as well. Comes round about here.
Is it really 4 months of work?
it's hard to believe, isn't it?
Depends how much they have to dismantle. I guess is the issue.
There's also ivy. There is ivy growing in it at the moment. Although Alf has taken it out.
Well, I think they're going to demolish it and
Yes.
then bring
that's
more materials, which
Yes,
of course are in
what
the
it says.
price, and put the stone back. And there's obviously a knack in 3 dimensions putting the right stones together. But it does still
He
seem
does know his
very expensive.
work. I mean, he's
Good work.
But is there a danger it could be more then?
Well, according to his letter, yes.
Yes.
Because he's
So-
just,
You almost wonder if this is sort of insurance quotes rather than parish council quotes. Because it was insurance last time.
Well, he knows it's not.
Yeah, okay.
He knows his name.
Yes.
I don't think we got any any alternative.
No, from a
Okay.
safety
All
point
right.
of view.
So is everyone happy to go ahead with that then?
I would recommend that it's done as ASAP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's certainly for the winter.
I think,
Yeah, before it settles down, you're right, George.
I think we need to set some sort of control on it, because as the letter is written, we could find ourselves embarking on something that became 4,000, 4,500, but whatever. And I don't know, I'm not suggesting we necessarily get into a sort of a complicated negotiation bargaining, but we've got 3,500 and something.
Yes.
I would suggest that, to be frank, something that size lends itself very much to a fixed price. And I think I'd go back and offer them what we've got in the pot and say, that's what we can afford, that's what's been set aside in the reserves. If you can accept that, the job's yours.
Okay.
Because I don't know where we're going to get the extra money
No,
from.
that's
It
right.
went up and up and up.
Indeed. Well, you're quite right that, I mean, for a job of that size, you know, doing it on sort of labour and materials is a bit unreasonable in a way. They ought to be able to say, well, we'll take, you know, okay, they may get hit with the fact that it took longer, but then that's life. The same as with most building jobs.
Well, yeah,
It's
gonna
not
really
completely
slow it down
outrageous.
if it poured with rain for 2 weeks.
The other issue is though,
that's-
the other issue is, as you said, it's hard to find stonemasons. They are holding all the cards, aren't they? Really? So. Don't have them, it doesn't get done.
But Paul's
We do
right,
have-
because we don't want it to be open-ended.
No. Well, let's try that approach.
We do have, obviously we've been putting money aside for maintenance, you know, each time. So we do have money, we've got 3,715 that we've in reserves for
Yeah, but we
churchyard
can get
maintenance.
rid of it all pretty easily. We've got the other wall that we've got to do as well, which has
Still
been
in
waiting
about
2
3,000.
years nearly for us to get
I
round
would
to do
propose
it.
the parish staff goes back and tries to negotiate a fixed price deal of between 3,500 and 3,700 and do your best. And that's basically.
They've asked for 3,300, haven't they?
Between
That's a
3 and
3,700.
Oh, they asked for 3,700.
So
It's
we've got
3,750.
3,500. They've asked for 3,700.
3,700, sorry.
See if you can go back and say what we've got in the reserves. Be candid about it.
Alf has taken more of the stuff off since they last looked at it, and obviously that should lessen what
It's awful
their
without
time,
it.
the time that they're taking to do it.
Okay, can we just agree then that we'll ask the clerk to use her discretion to get a fixed price for somewhere around the 3,500 or 3,700,
And to be done as soon as possible.
as soon as possible. Okay, we all agreed? Good, thank you.
I'll just add to that the other piece of wall that's we've been waiting a long time that runs adjacent to the paddock. That the people who own the paddock, and I don't know who they are, seem to pile
Rawlings.
their grass all the way along that wall, which I don't think helps in terms of the wall
No,
being damaged
keeps it damp, yeah.
when they're cutting the grass. So it's like actually on the footpath as well.
Tony
Might
and
be
Anna
worth
Rawlings.
Could ask,
asking them.
so we could ask Alf to tell them not to do it.
Be nice.
If I
No.
send it all, then I'm seeing.
Happy?
Yes, good idea.
You'll hold my coat, will you?
I'll load your pistol.
I don't know the person, but that's why I suggested Alf. Right, okay, progress report from councillors on voices reports. Now, we've been rather slipping past this in recent months. I've just printed off one copy for myself. I didn't want to do another half a dozen of them. Let's just whiz through them quickly and see if anyone's got anything to suggest as we get to theirs. Now, communications used to be David's, and if everyone is happy, I will take that on while we don't have anyone to look after it. I was on the working group at the time, so that's. I was staying out of it before because I was also on the steering group for all of them, but now I will stand in for David meanwhile. So going through them, faster broadband, village website, Wi-Fi for the village hall. Now that's the first one. George, this is a bit sort of on your chit as village hall. Do we know what we're doing about trying to get the router to work better?
The Film Society rep, who's now on the Village Hall committee,
Yeah.
is going to take it on to actually retrieve the whatever it is thing out of the router out of the cupboard, and
stick it
then
somewhere
find
better.
out about where we can move it to make it more useful.
Excellent.
So we have got progress there.
So we're about to make progress, as it were. You've done that at least. That's good. Very helpful. Thank you. Twitter, we're not going down anymore since I did the social media conference. Outlook and Oxney and the website, we know where we are there. Nothing's going to happen on that. Notice boards is achieved. Mobile phone coverage is partially achieved. As for going back to Twitter again, we do of course have, in a sense, Nextdoor and Facebook are. Facebook, I know, is a closed site, but at least it's both of them have been some move forward, even if it's not the one that was envisaged.
We'll also have YouTube with our records of meetings.
Indeed, you're right. YouTube. You're thinking well. And the mobile phone coverage, partially achieved, we had before. We do have, of course, the mast issue, which has gone terribly quiet since I persuaded them not to go and stick it on Acton Lane.
I believe they've withdrawn their application.
Does that mean they're not going to do it at all, or that
Oh,
they will
well,
withdraw
just-
you ready to do the other one?
They haven't withdrawn the second one. It's the first one they've withdrawn. The one that was on Owley Land that they've withdrawn.
Yeah.
But
that
not
was
the
after
second
it wasn't
one.
validated.
I thought the one that we debated.
Hasn't been withdrawn.
Oh,
Well, it's disappeared.
Yes, but it hasn't been withdrawn. Because that exactly the same thing happened with the other one, the one at Owley. That just disappeared. But now it's been officially withdrawn.
what do you mean by disappeared?
Not on the site.
On the website?
Yeah. The first one on Owley Land disappeared into the Ulu because it was not validated, so it was just removed.
Yes.
Then they put in the one on Acton Lane, and I persuaded the senior planner that that was a bad idea, and he said he'd look into it. And then what happened to that one?
That's disappeared.
It's disappeared. So what we're assuming is one of two possibilities. Either they've given up and said we'll leave Wittersham as a not spot because we can't be bothered, or they're preparing to actually put that one in Owley back in again.
I did hear that they were going to move it down towards the wood.
Right.
But I haven't seen an application that says that yet.
No. It was pretty close to the wood. It was pretty close to the wood anyway.
Well, no, the one that was on in the middle of the field.
The first one was close to the wood.
That was close to the wood.
It was nearly in the wood.
It was.
Yeah.
But I got assurance from Harlequin that it was not under the tree canopy, and Ashford said if it's not under the tree canopy, that is okay.
We'll watch this space.
So we may have some issue coming along there. So that was communications. Neighbourhood care. Care in the community. We have an expert on this one. There is a willingness by CCG and Ivy Court Surgery to provide more care in the community, so suggested that this is revisited in 2017 when more news should be available. Might be a possibility. I don't know where that came from originally. I think that was
Would have been
John's input, probably because of him sitting on this patient group and hearing stuff.
Yes. I sat next to the acting chairman of the CCG at a conference the week before last, and he was saying how keen he is. He just moved into that role, and how keen he is to get input from the community. And I was singing the praises of Ivy Court, as he would do. And then I looked at the people on that particular group, and I noticed that one of the doctors at Ivy Court is actually on that group.
Excellent.
Which is,
that was very politic of you then.
Kobe.
So I feel that the dots are reasonably joined on that. But it was also mindful, not just that, but of the expanding housing and how that's going to affect provision of care in the community. So we're aware of that.
Well, all of the new houses obviously are a worry, but then I did hear that they haven't sold in it.
Sure.
and there's anticipation that they may not sell it. So there may not be anybody living in them.
The plan had been earlier on that David Green was hoping to move to one, but now he's I understand is likely to move somewhere else. That won't actually happen.
Right.
I've been the only one.
Yeah. So that caring community, I'm sorry, Sue, cutting you out because this is your area, but I just thought that we had Alan Neal on that. In fact, you probably know more about it than he does. From
I'm yesterday's man.
Yes. Dementia. This was the Dementia Friendly Society that John had been talking to, but we never went anywhere with any training in the village hall. Wheeled and Wheels is a bit better though. The last chairman was I'm just standing in here because I know something on this, and you saw the email. The last chairman here was going to contact ABC to ask for financial support to begin a system here for Wittersham and the Isle of Oxney as Wheeled and Wheels. Whether that's feasible, I don't know. But as you all saw, there's a seminar just popped up from KCC. Goodness knows why, but obviously some policy initiative. And Roger Parker and I are going to attend it, and it's in November. So we'll see. They're supposedly going to tell us what's possible, and we will at least have some angle then as to whether we have any possibility of doing it, or whether it's kind of, if you're not a town of 50,000, don't think about it. You know, we don't know. Isolation, of course, has been done because we've got the lunch club. Adult fitness equipment, unachievable. This was when we had the idea of the tennis courts on the 106 agreement for Pipers, which never happened. But who knows? Presently unachievable is what we said before. We've put in 3 more items of outdoor fitness equipment meanwhile, so that was achieved. We need a volunteer to run a pet care scheme, where there to be one, so we've got to get hold of volunteering first. Now, the Volunteer Bureau in Ashford were quite interesting on the course I went on last week, and I've put that in the notes that you've got. I've also mentioned that very point to Roger for voices. And community awareness, chairman of the PC to produce a table of actions, read progress for each future PC meeting. Well, as you can see, I've not been doing that. I did 1 or 2 early on and then gave up when we never really quite got a grip of it. In terms of wider community awareness, of course, what we are doing now, since I got chivied by Nicholas Hurst to do it, is that I do put that note of significant developments in the Outlook every month. So they get a bit more information than they used to only be planning. So we go on to transport. Paul, do you want to have a look?
Well, the main one with the Wheeled and Wheels has been moved out of that, as you've already covered that. We've got certain things are unachievable because the funds are basically not there. The whole issue of speeding through the village, well, what we've got there, if you remember, is we've got the existing 2 signs, which,
thanks, Pat.
touch wood, seem to be working reasonably well at the moment. And then we've also got the SID initiative, which is moving forward. So I think that's probably
and the gates,
the entrance gates. I wasn't sure whether that comes into that, or that's,
well, it's
that's,
kind
that's
of
elsewhere.
it's sort of speeding orientated, isn't it?
I think the things that are going to be far more difficult are going to be things like pedestrian crossings and additional footpaths up and down Stocks Road. Let's be pragmatic about that. It's not going to happen in the near future. There's just not the spare funding in highways budget or wherever that's going to come from. So I think that the support we get in terms of SID and these speed indicators and things go with that are going to be the most. I think that's pretty much it at the moment, isn't it? The other thing was that the long queue of volunteers for Speed Watch. Sorry. I thought there was another volunteer on there.
You nearly in there.
So we just haven't. I mean, I think that the recruitment of the village warden was an indicator of the level of numbers of volunteers we're going to get. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the fact that we're going to get these speed indicators, we've got the existing working, that's probably as much as we can expect to do at the moment. Let's see how that goes down and what impact that has. Of course, those speed indicators that we can move around, and so we can adjust those depending on where we might be. Thanks.
Okay, let me just adjourn for a short public session because I've just seen Ollie come in. Yeah?
Yes.
Did he ever go?
Well, coming and going and coming. Ollie, before you give us any report that you can, let me just stress, because it's happened since you were here last time, we now record the meetings, hence the big microphone. And we've just resolved tonight that we're going to find out how to actually put our recordings on the internet. So I just stress that to you. Everyone else here had heard that already.
That's fine. I'm used to it offended anyway.
Right.
Are you happy for me to?
Yes, please.
Sorry,
over to you. That's all right. Over to you. I'm glad to see you come.
First of all, I'd like to apologise for being late. I've just come from Charing Parish Council meeting. So obviously a bit of a trek from here. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Oliver Welch. I used to cover the area many years ago. A bit of background about myself. I've been in nearly 9 years now. Started off at Tenterden. I've always been out this way. I used to work in the little shop on the High Street. For those of you that knew that, sadly no longer there. I've covered the rural villages, and then I went into Tenterden itself. Spent a couple of years in Tenterden, and I've now come back out this way. We've had a reshuffle within Kent Police. Troops have been moved here, there, and everywhere. Basically, all down to call demand. People have been placed where they deem necessary. As you can understand, there's been a reduction in numbers, however this is changing, and there are a significant amount of officers actually going through the process at the moment, joining up, and there will be a retention of 300 PTSOs in Kent Police. That's a number that we the Chief Constable have actually agreed to and will be sticking to, so there will be 300 of us around. So basically, the reason for the change has been an introduction of new roles within the PTSO sort of forum. We actually can't progress anywhere from PTSO. We don't join to become a police officer. There is no progression from PTSO to police officer. If we want to go down that route, we actually do have to leave and rejoin. Exactly like anyone else applying, the same applies for us. So the new roles, we've got 4 new roles that have come in. We've got a youth engagement officer, a vulnerable victims or vulnerable persons officer, a domestic abuse officer, and a missing persons officer. So these 4 roles have come in and are allowed PCSOs to apply for those roles and go into those roles. That obviously does mean a reduction in our numbers. However, with those roles in place, also becomes a reduction in our workload. So for example, if I go out to an area and I meet a vulnerable victim, vulnerable person, rather than me obviously spend my time dealing with that person, that individual and everything that comes with it, they get passed on to the vulnerable person's officer, who then has more time, has more capability to deal with them. Obviously then they get a better level of service, and also us out on the ground can give a better level of service because we can be out here more. So I do cover, or I am covering now 9 wards, which spans from Ham Street all the way to Charing, and everything in between. I think it's a total of about 19 villages plus Tenterden town itself, which I've retained. It is a large area, I mean, some of you asking. It is large, but it's deemed that it's not, they don't need more than one of us out here. It's all based on call demand. The calls don't warrant there being more people. That's how it works. Other colleagues of mine have been moved around areas, so we've lost a couple in Dover. One's gone to Folkestone, one's gone to Canterbury, one's gone to Maidstone, and they're pushing resources where they feel that they're needed, all based on call demand, as I'm sure you can appreciate. So I will be out and about. I'm not going to make any promises to say you're going to see me every day, but if you don't see me, it's probably going to be a good thing. As you can imagine, I will be going where the calls dictate. So, for example, should you have a spate of criminal damage, burglaries, etc., then I'll spend my time in Wittersham. If you've not got any crime going on, but Pluckley you've got crime, then I'll be spending my time in Pluckley. As you can appreciate, I will be going where is necessary. That's enough from me. I'm not going to lie, I haven't been able to research the vast bulk of ongoings in the village. I've just sort of taken over and getting my head around all the different areas. trying to pick up the workload that was left from those departing. So I'll open it up, ask any questions from yourselves.
Are you the single PCSO covering Tenterden and the 19 villages, or do you do a shift and someone else does a shift?
No.
It's just you. What does strike me, obviously towns are a big issue in all sorts of reasons, but you said there are 300 PCSOs in Kent, and there are 300 parishes in Kent. So obviously you can start saying, okay, there will obviously be more in Tunbridge Wells and in Maidstone, but it is strange that you have 19 villages and Tenterden on that kind of numbering.
Yeah, I can't answer that one, unfortunately. That's not for me to answer.
Okay.
We do have obviously a town team that work in Ashford, and they will go out to Tenterden and they will patrol Tenterden to take that burden off me if needed. So there are other resources available.
Okay.
Ollie, if you want to pass on to one of your colleagues regarding abuse, etc., is there one in the county, or there's one in the 19 villages? You see what I'm getting at?
What's right?
You know, you were talking about that you could be in a position to hand some of your work down to some specialists, right? Is that one for the county?
No, the specialist roles are out and about. So we've got those four roles are based at Ashford. There's another 4 of them based in Folkestone.
I see. So you've got 4 people.
Sorry, I didn't explain that.
No, it wasn't that. My worry was it was going to be one person, possibly for the county, but there's going to be 4.
No, there's 4. Yeah, there's 4 per area. So you know they will obviously take a significant amount of my work. So it's not a case of me having to do 19 areas all by myself, everything. So a lot of what I deal with, well, not a lot of what I deal with, but sort of majority, I can push off into different avenues if necessary.
Okay.
So I can still be out here. I'm not going to be spending my time in the office. I'm not going to be tucked up with paperwork. I will be, you know, if you get a problem with, say, 2 or 3 local lads causing an issue, yes, I will deal with them. But obviously I'll make the youth engagement officer aware as well, and he will have involvement with them. So I'm not tied up.
That's slightly more reassuring than what I picked up to start with.
Good. A point of information for you, Ollie. You know, no doubt, Joe Voss, who was here earlier, the warden for us and Tenterden and a few other villages. We have a volunteer warden just coming through training at the moment who lives in Wittersham. We're only one of the only few villages who have. Lee Phelan, who does have a background in social care, and she works in the nursery as well here, so she knows some stratas. That's Lee Phelan, lives on the estate, trying to think of the name of it at the minute.
Woodland View.
Woodland View. So that's someone who, if you've not come across her, we do actually need to try and make sure that you pick up on each other, because whereas Joe is covering a lot of areas, although Lee will only do a few hours a week, she's actually here.
So she'll have her ear more to the ground.
And that would be one of the things that she's actually tasked with doing in the letter that just came from Kent to the clerk, is she is tasked with trying to pick up intelligence for you and for the other agencies. So you need to make sure you're using that. Anyone else have any questions or points for?
Good question. You're probably aware of it. The application, the app that you can get on your phone, which is
Country Eye.
Country Eye, which I've been aware of for a while through a different organisation. That's where, I mean, I've mentioned that to the council before, but that's where if you see something untoward going on, you can use your camera just to photograph it and click it, and immediately it's sent off to the Country Eye. That goes on to Kent Police. Do you get that as well?
It's not something I have had. Is that all through the Neighbours Watch as well?
Not really. It was developed separately by Mike Bax and a couple of other people who put some money and resource behind it. But it was the idea that the police force could not be everywhere. But then people living in villages, if they saw something, well, you wouldn't necessarily want them to go and engage 4 burly lads lifting whatever out of wherever. You could just take that, and actually that evidence would be far more valuable to follow up, be it on a number plate or description. But my understanding is that goes to the Country Eye Central Controller, which also liaises with Kent Police, so it feeds through. But it seems to me that I don't know whether it's joined up. Because if you're the guy on the ground, albeit in 19 parishes, if one of those parishes was reporting something, it would make sense that it got fed through to you.
Yeah, so I obviously get.
Maybe that's a question for the PCC.
Yeah, I mean, I can feed that one back. I get all the emails that come through from Neighbourhood Watch.
Yeah.
I don't know if you do you have a Neighbourhood Watch stuff?
We have a coordinator.
We have, but we have also the other applications. We just quite a lot of people subscribe to now, next door. And that's got a category for crime reporting in it.
But you have to live in Wittersham for that. So
yeah, no, I've heard that in, I think Shaddockshurst have that as well.
Yes, they do. Well, that's where Mike lives.
Right, okay.
So of course that's, and rural crime is something that's far more prevalent in the county than most people realise. So maybe what we should do is, and I'm happy to do that as the local police rep, if you like, on the council, is to just write formally to the PCC and ask him to look into that from his end to make sure that it's all joined up rather than push against anyone else. We can maybe achieve that more quickly.
Yes. Okay.
Thanks.
Right. Anything else for Ollie? Can I just suggest, does any member of the public want to ask Ollie something while you've got the opportunity? Because you won't make the most of it when you see him. You get moved in another couple of months.
No, hopefully not.
Just make a comment, Mr. Chairman, that when Ollie was here before, it worked very well because he understood the younger generation. Very often.
Yeah, but he was younger then.
Not much older.
The village is all older now.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Phil. Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the trouble to come.
No, it's fine. Obviously, I'm aware of the farmers' market that takes place as well. I used to pop in there quite regularly.
Good.
It will be something I will look to do again.
Yeah, Tuesday mornings, bacon butties.
Just obviously just engage with people. As you can appreciate, with the clock's about to change, I'm not going to see many people when I come out here after sort of 4 or 5 o'clock.
No.
I can assure I will be out here. Last couple of days I've been out and about, just driving around my area, getting used to all the back roads, just looking for any sort of suspicious vehicles. I'm sure you're probably aware there was a burglary in the village, and there has been a couple in rural areas. So I am out and about. I am sort of skulking around the back lanes and such, looking for any suspicious activity going on.
Well, 3 young men in a white battered transit van have probably got my straddle stone in the back, so if you can find that, I'd be very grateful.
We do have trouble with the youngsters.
Okay.
Up on Coronation Field, I haven't reported it yet, but the bin had been removed and damaged. I mean, it's sort of not quite concreted in before, but it was really fixed quite well, so they didn't move it, but it had been moved around. So that's now been put in concrete. And cherry tree, we had a flowering cherry tree that we won in the tree competition, and that's been broken down. The kids have been up and down the street, and there's kids on skateboards coming down into Poplar Road from Forge Meads. We seem to have at the moment kids that are damaging. We go through, you get 2 or 3 years of this.
The years, don't you? They come through and then they grow up and move on, and then you get the next one.
So we've got a spate of that at the moment.
Just worth you knowing. I know it'll be hard to catch them.
Are we looking around? Is it early evening?
I don't know. I don't live in the village. It just gets reported to me. I don't know if anyone else has.
It's been the summer evenings
at different times,
and it's been the summer evenings as well, which of course coming to
it should probably drop down, because I've noticed them sometimes. It's been in the sort of middle of the summer evening.
Yeah, but this was this week. This was on Sunday, I think. The bin was moved and.
Can I just mention there's been problems at the school as well?
Yeah.
All the swimming pool.
Oh yes.
I know Joe knows about it. That might be something to
I'll
look at as well.
That's something you might want to pick up on, because that's been quite expensive damage in the school.
Is it reported? Do you know, has it been reported?
It's been reported. The school reported it to the police, but nothing's happened as far as I know. But I know Joe and Lee have both looking at it, but
Just obviously making sure that everything's reported. Any crime you get, no matter how small, just to make sure it's reported. Got the 101 system, obviously for non-urgent crime. There's now also an online reporting form as well via the Kent Police website. So I know.
Oh, that's come through now, has it?
It has come through. It is now
I know it was due.
So I know a lot of people were a bit despondent with the 101 system, having to wait sort of several minutes to get through. If you are on the computer,
I used it the other day,
Yes.
as it's just come on,
Yeah.
and it took me, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, but it's fine. I got a response back within 24 hours.
Lovely.
So the system does work there.
You found it okay?
Yeah, well, I phoned up 101, and after a while it was answered by a very pleasant lady who explained that it was terribly busy and I might have to wait quite a long time. Did I have access to a computer? Because I could fill it in online. So I said yes, and that's the way to do it.
I wonder if you want to put something in Outlook next month to tell the public that
Yeah,
that online reporting is there.
Just to Charing, because they were saying residents were getting sort of quite despondent with the 101 system. I've just asked them if they can put it in their sort of newsletter, just that it is up and running. And obviously, the more people that use that,
I'd say it's 101, yeah.
It's going to take the demand off the phones.
Sure, absolutely. Good.
Okay, I'll put something with it to you.
Yes, Alan.
Is fly tipping a crime? I don't know.
Fly tipping is a crime, yes.
So I should have reported fly tipping.
Yes, it's generally dealt with by the council, fly tipping. However, we do get involved as well. If you do see it, if you do happen to catch any sort of vehicles.
So then if it just happens and you didn't see anything.
Yeah, then it's the council. Because it's the council that will come in.
Shouldn't report it to your team.
Unless it's in progress, then no. The council will be the ones that come out and obviously deal with it and clear it up. I know. I'm sure if you go through Joe, she'll have a link in there.
Okay. Right, thank you very much indeed.
No,
Much obliged. Yeah, please do.
Well, again, apologies for being late.
Okay, no, that's all right.
I will try and get 2 meetings as often as possible.
If you drop in at any time, it's appreciated.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's earlier, then there'll be more people here because some people have been going already. They go when their interest is assuaged. But anytime you come in, at least we're here.
Yeah. What time do you roughly go until? Is it a late one?
Wednesday.
I know Charing just told me sort of 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock would be a good one.
No, we finish about 9, so if you come in before Charing, that would be really appreciated.
I mean, I will try and alternate, which is obviously, as I'm sure you can appreciate, I've got a couple that run on the same evenings.
Whenever you can get here.
So, whenever you get here. I mean, we might be trying to get away by 10, but we're certainly here until that, towards 10, let's say. Typically. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Sorry?
Close the public session again.
Yeah. Close the public session again. Thank you, George. So that was quite helpful. We're now back onto the voices again. Local amenities. This is you, George. Public transport at the end of school hours, dial-a-ride service and what have you. Supporting all amenities using the village website. This is Hugo Fox, liaise with voices. That we've really made that go yet. And pro forma lease renewal between the PC and the sports club. That I think is off the agenda now. So I can take that away and say not on agenda. That's
one thing
from when we were on it a long time ago.
It wasn't in before, I think, is about the youth club, which, although wasn't one of our actions, was something that was discussed a lot when we were meeting, although it didn't actually make the final cuts, if you like.
Okay, I'll see if I can get that in anywhere. Okay. Housing, that's Colin.
I've been in touch with the two representatives of Voices, but it got taken over slightly by the developments of Ashton Borough Council.
Yeah, sure.
And they felt at this point in time that they would wait to see developments before they met again. But I have been in touch.
Okay. Voices group. Okay. All right. Thank you. And environment. That's Alan.
Rod and I had discussions. I'm not sure we've made a huge amount of headway. Is there any particular item you would actually like to highlight there?
There's educating residents about cutting hedges. I think Phil put something into Outlook a while ago, didn't you?
We've done that.
Additional dog bins and where we would site them. We did put some dog bins out, didn't we?
Well, we've got
We
them
probably
spread around the
dogged
village.
out.
I can't think where else they would.
Additional litter bins, you offered to do an article and you did it. Increase awareness of publicly owned spaces. This is on our task list, the brand making, which we've got to come back to. I've got a note on the task list. Methods to increase participation of future surveys like Survey Monkey, Street Champions and things. This will be really one for voices further surveys probably as much as anything else. Engage younger members of the community, invite youngsters to a meeting or something they'd be interested in. A youth club, I suppose, is going to be the way forward there because that'll give them a hearing. Sense of community for children, environment quiz for primary school children. It says not achieved. It was done, wasn't it? There was a quiz in the school. I'll move that to achieved.
What's it?
They did it about 9 months ago, or a year.
Yes.
And the Community Resource Centre, the Clinical Commissioning Group wants a venue to offer services locally. Church, village hall could include a library, cafe, youth group, somewhere to go for information, volunteer staff needed to bring together an inventory of what we have and people to help. That's a big one.
It's ongoing, Adam. It says ongoing.
Okay, well, I've got a few updates. I mean, we're going to have to try and get our teeth into some of these and some of them may be beyond us, but we need to make progress on some of the others. Either by achieving them or by diverting them into something that is in the same ballpark, which we can do, or demonstrating that they're absolutely undoable. Okay? Right, that's voices then, thank you. Victim support, donation.
This is the letter we get annually, really.
We have a history of giving something.
£50 each year we give. We decided.
Yes, we do the same.
Happy with that?
Agreed. Yeah.
Agreed then, good, thank you. The ABC business rates consultation. This came in a bit ago.
Yes, I put it on because
thanks
I
very
thought.
much for coming, Jennifer and Phil, and Roger and Valerie. Thank you. Good night.
Yes, I put it on just to see whether there's anything else we could do. I've already put it on the website, and I put it on Facebook. Telling people to go to the right, exactly. But I didn't know if there's anything else anybody thought we could do.
I did look at it at the time. It's a sort of government-driven thing about whether they want to shuffle around the support that is given to people who are in small businesses. And there are all sorts of potential wrinkles. So to take an example that I just spotted, I know, for instance, that Dax at the minute gets business rate support because I put him on to Canterbury, which handled it for Ashford, to actually get it for him. But you don't get it if you've got two premises. And then you say, well, is his Folkestone premise the other one, or is that in his wife's name, and, all that sort of business. There are loads of wrinkles, and I'm sorry to say that I think an awful lot of these consultations, apart from the professional, trade associations and lobbyists and that, most of them are going through the motions in a way that people, even us in the parish council, let alone everyday people, there's very little they can do, and there's very little they can influence. It's a sort of a turn the handle, and that's my feeling about them anyway. They're very hard to deal with, a lot of them. You've done some before on transport and policing and things. Yeah. And this one, it's pretty obscure. You're sort of really shooting in the dark.
Yeah, I would wait till other things come out. I want, you share the information at this stage, and that's as far as I should go.
Okay. All right, thank you. Now to note that Oliver Welsh is the new PCSO, and quick flash, and he's here. Only once maybe, but he's here. Christmas and New Year recycling and refuse collections.
Yes, I've just had that. I mean, they're a bit like Jempson's got it all ready out. You know, I've got the... But I don't think I'll do anything with it yet until...
No.
Will it go in the
Close.
Will it go in the outlook? It wouldn't be appropriate.
Well,
yet, would it?
December maybe, but certainly not
No, not yet.
yet.
They've not gone on the website.
Oh, well, yes, in due course, but I'm not
yeah.
doing anything with it yet, is
No,
basically
no,
what I'm
you,
saying.
you have been notified.
I've been notified, and
so
I
we
will
need
get
to know.
something nearer the date.
Yes.
Another poster, I'm told.
Okay.
But
it, you know, beginning of November, December's could go in outlook.
yes,
Yes, and you know.
It's only 75 days to Christmas.
oh, you're one, so you know all about it. Oh, you've got a daughter, haven't you? She must know. Yeah. Everyone will get one of these. Yes, everyone will get one.
Yeah, so,
Everybody gets
Yes,
no, we noted it.
Right, okay.
yes, it's just for noting.
So now we've got to authorise the clerk's expenses.
You've all got my sheet. This month's deliberate mistake on the agenda is that it's not actually March, it was July, because we're doing it quarterly.
Yeah.
So it's from the 11th of July, which the sheet does say.
Yes, it
It's
does.
just the agenda that
It
was
does.
wrong.
Yeah.
Right, so...
The stationery that I haven't actually itemised at the top, which is more than I would normally, is when I had copy paper envelopes and your brochure doofies,
Oh, yeah.
those things, plus other bits that I got. And while we're on that, you will all have got up-to-date sheets, so if you could change your files, please, to put them in. You've now got safeguarding
Documentation.
and so if you wouldn't mind taking out the old one, putting in the new one, I would appreciate it,
Sorry,
please.
can I just double check? Which is the new stuff that you got?
You should have one of those I gave you.
That's right.
Colour papers.
A new front page.
New front page.
Oh, they're in here, are they?
Yes,
Sorry, I
yeah.
thought it was all the clerk's expenses.
No.
No, this is while I'm on to it.
25 pages on it.
It's-
isn't it?
Right, got it.
Right, okay, so you've
Now I
got,
understand, yes.
and I have,
Yes,
You see the colour coding.
yes, I can actually. It was a relief.
Excellent. Whether we can actually do that, we might lose them before they get in there.
I
but
know,
we'll
and
do
I
our
can't
best.
do anything about that.
No.
And you will find
Yeah.
that there is a spare space for your safeguarding.
Yes.
There is a
That
sheet,
was thinking ahead.
blank one, for you to put your safeguarding policy in.
Indeed, I need Pauline to do it.
Do we have to formally receive or accept your expenses? Or?
Yes, please,
We
you'll
do.
authorise if you wouldn't mind, please.
Is everyone happy with that?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Good. Do I need to sign it or just sign the cheque when we get
Yeah,
to it?
sign the cheque if you wouldn't mind, please.
Okay, so that's clerk's expenses. Good. Working party reports. Caretaker.
Right, I do have a couple. Right, as you heard me say to Ollie, that the litter bin on Coronation Field had been pulled out of the ground and dragged across the field. I had an email via the website from Andrew Deeks, who reported this to me, and he put it back, which is very kind of him, and he thought the bin seemed undamaged. I mentioned it to Alf, and Alf has now put a new post in with postcrete, so that should stay.
Good.
Okay, that was all I had on that.
I think that we're running into the winter and he hasn't done the village sign on the triangle he was hoping to do.
Yeah, that's going to be, well, I've mentioned it, but he's hasn't put the notice board up yet either.
Keep on it,
I will.
because his hours reduce as he goes into the winter. with
No, he
daylight.
doesn't. He
tends
works
to do them the same,
He
does
works
he?
the same.
Okay. Okay. So the monthly transaction statement, including the caretaker statement, we have our
You've all
usual
got those.
page. Oh, you've paid the audit fee, okay.
I don't think there's anything.
You bought that notice board, which of course we agreed.
Yes,
to
it was
go.
waiting to go in.
Got the precepts. Good.
And
Ashley's coughed.
and the chairman's conference that The chairman attended.
Mm-hmm.
Precepts, everything's in. Second half is in. Yeah, everyone happy?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, that's just the other side. I'm going to sign this now. Everyone happy for me to sign it?
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Right, probably.
Do you want me to sign the other
Yes,
one as well?
please. Yes, please. Probably on the back of my expenses, we should have the half-yearly statement.
We have.
Yes.
We do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, all the income is in as we expected, as the budget said. Expenditures much. I think. I'm not sure there's anything untoward. The website was more than we had budgeted for, it's nearly £4.
So generally speaking, we should be looking at half the actual expenditure for half a year, apart from things like insurance that are paid for a year in advance.
Yeah.
The thing, yeah.
Yes, and I mean, there will be. I haven't taken across the contribution to the caretaker scheme, but that will go across next month. So that's another 4, which will bring it up to 12. So we're not far off. The notice board was slightly more. They've obviously gone up since we first budgeted.
But there's something gone wrong here, isn't there?
What's gone wrong?
Oh no, sorry. Take it back. Take it back.
Quick question on expenditure, and I wasn't at the last meeting, so it might have been discussed there, but I couldn't see it in the minutes as such. We made various decisions in terms of hedge 1, hedge 2, hedge, etc., etc.
Oh yeah, we did.
When's that going to be done, and where's the cost?
I'm getting costs together now.
Right. Okay.
So that will come into it, but we are expecting it probably come out of the caretaker's account, because we do have money there, and it is part of the.
We pay him to do that.
The grass cutting and everything comes out of that account. But yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
But it's not going to be done as a kind of quick project. It's going to be a bit of this and a bit of that.
Excellent, thank you.
Right. Okay, everyone
So
happy?
everyone,
thank you.
Happy.
Yep. Do I have to sign that?
Thank you. Yes, if you mind, just say that it's all been. Thank you. And just to say that before the next meeting, George, we will have a budget setting meeting, finance committee, working party.
Good.
So
Which you will enjoy. I always do.
Oh dear.
So not a lot.
2 different sentences.
Let me know.
Yes, we'll have to sort out.
We'll have a
We do
previous
it.
engagement.
We do it in Mrs. Osborne's abode, because she's got all her papers there.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, so we attend the salon in Rye.
You get a coffee, but unfortunately you don't get biscuits.
No.
Just cake.
I don't have biscuits or cake in my house.
No. She doesn't get enough hours for them. Chip butty,
Chairman's fund.
Chairman's fund's done in. Okay, so we've done them. So now the number 3 on finance is to nominate a councillor to make the quarterly check on the bank reconciliation. You remember this is something that started a quarter ago when we found that we were supposed to do it in the finance regs.
You want me to do it
No.
again?
It's supposed to be just different.
One. Yeah, we got your number, Colin.
When's the next one due?
Now.
No.
Can't I do the 2 things at once?
Okay.
Fine.
Good.
So
Planning.
too much weight on everyone else,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Mind you, your turns will come, remember?
Indeed. I'm not actually allowed to do it.
No.
It's under the rules.
Yes.
I'm let off
I
there.
understand perfectly. Yes.
Yeah. Planning is our next one.
Right, it's as the agenda plus Lordings Oast, which I should have put on but didn't.
No.
Right.
And that has been granted.
Yeah.
That was the proposed revised scheme to approved application earlier in the year for a detached garage with additional open bay for storage. So
now,
that was granted.
So now we're on the agenda. Was 12 Poplar Road granted or what? Because it just says ...
Yes,
here.
it was.
Yes, it was granted.
Granted, okay. And you just said the Lordings Oast was granted.
Yes.
That's the last version of it because they changed it.
No, yes.
Yeah, okay. So we go on to highways, Paul?
Well, you all have noticed that the road around Cooper's Corner, the Kingly Quarter, and then near to Small eventually closed and then opened.
And eventually got served.
Did a good job.
They've done a great job. What it does do is exacerbate the bits in between.
Yeah, that's the problem.
They've missed this.
I couldn't believe the potholes just coming up the hill tonight, and I
Yes.
thought, well, once they put out the traffic lights and closed it for a week, even though it's a different crew, why on earth don't they come along and do the potholes at the same time?
No,
Bonkers.
that's not what I'm thinking.
Well, yeah, it is what it is, I guess, and all we can do is. But there's a very good reporting system, as everyone has told us in the past. So that's all we can do. I mean, at the moment we're going into the cold weather, and they will reappear. But
Indeed, they've appeared already.
I think that by and large we don't get a bad service from KCC when it comes to our highways. And in other parts of Kent, which I go around, some areas seem to have the most incredible affliction of potholes, and so I think a combination of the different people that look at it.
Okay.
I have a few things. The seepage that obviously Joe mentioned. I first, in the first instance, I reported it to Darren Anderson, our highway steward, and he said that he had already spotted it and had passed it on to the drainage team, which I said, big waste of time. So I've gone back and said, it's still there, it's getting worse.
It is getting worse.
And if we start getting into the freezing temperatures, so because I just said to him, have you heard anything further? And he said, no, he hadn't. He will pass my email straight on to the drainage team. So I'm not hopeful with that. The necked
Before
light.
you go off that one,
Yeah.
The guy who bought John Rivers' house, he is a contractor for utilities and deals with underground pipes and stuff. He employs people, and that's their job. And I asked him about it when I was having a chat the other day, and his immediate view was, firstly, nowhere's it a water leak because there's too much pressure. I mean, you'd seen it, nowhere's it a water leak. He was inclined to take the view that we've been told before, that it's probably an underground spring or stream. And of course that's very difficult for them to deal with, but we still have the ice. But anyway, he didn't diverge from the views we've had from other people.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how underground springs work, but then it never seems to coincide with wet weather. I mean, it's been really dry, and we've still had that. So I'm not sure where it's coming from, unless it's such a delay that weather that we had 5 years ago is suddenly now percolating back up through.
But we had it, and then it went.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's no correlation between wet weather and water.
That's why I've called it seepage rather than a water leak, because this is that's what it is. It's seeping up through the thing.
But it's very concerning. It's going to be a sheet ice. Isn't it?
It is.
We'll break the road up.
Necked lights.
Oh.
No, don't get excited.
What did you say?
Necked lights. Necked lights. The lights.
The lamp
there are
standards.
two lamp standards. Necked.
Oh, right. Okay.
So not nicked.
Not nicked.
Yes.
Excuse me, the minutes go things go shorter than that.
Oh, sorry.
For the purposes of the tape,
Yes.
the clerk went.
Thank you.
Please.
Right. Yes, it's the two that are down in Swan Cottages.
Yeah.
That Derek Harmon saw them doing it, knocking this post, knocking the daylights out of this post until they got a slight dent in it, and then decided it was dangerous and had to be cut off. So he asked me how I was getting on with it, so I'd forgotten, I have to admit, so I chased. Unfortunately, there have been delays in getting replacement work done. In brackets, KCC has a very busy programme of replacement across the county, close brackets. But I have contacted them again, and these 2 lights are in their programme for replacement. I don't yet have a date for replacement, but I will keep chasing, and once I know, I will let you know. So I will just keep chasing too. So that's that. Yes, that's all I've got on that.
Okay. So that was highways. Public rights of way.
Second vegetation cut has been completed. So on the ones that they do, not on all of them, but on the ones they do.
Open spaces, we are bereft because we have no David. I wonder if anyone else has something. You've got something?
Yes. Alpha's removed the dead apple tree that's on the green, so that now the other will be able to
flourish.
Yes, thank you. The flowering tree that I mentioned before has been broken off at the base, and Alpha's removed it. He said that it was, he saw it and one day and thought that the post needed tightening up a bit, so the following day he went to tighten it and it was laying on the ground. And if you remember the Mrs. Kirk mentioned the fitness equipment piece that was
coming loose.
Yes,
wobbly.
I've had tapes it up, but tape keeps getting removed while people are using it. I've contacted fitness, whatever they're called, and they are sending somebody out. I've sent I had to complete a form and take a photo and sent it to them. Right. So they are sending somebody out, but they'll contact me to.
So when they're coming?
Yes. So that's open spaces.
Good. Cemetery and churchyard. We've talked about the wall, of course, already.
Yes, and I have on just to say that Mrs. Mallet has been really sweet, and the 3 sons have been at her house within, I'm not sure they were all together, but all within sort of a week of each other, and so she had the form and she has got them all to sign it. So she had an envelope to return, so she has, which I thought was really
very helpful,
really nice of her.
They've all signed?
Yes, well I presume so. It was last week.
So another month while the solicitor's thinking about it now, I think.
Yeah.
The churchyard was a very successful clear out, and Judy is now going to have a bonfire on the 4th of November with a barbecue.
Ideal.
In the church? In that
in
that space
where you cleared.
Where I is it noted that the 2 parish councillors were there?
Yes, risking life and limb.
I was in France.
The bonfire is in the churchyard.
Yes.
Yes, there's a church. I was saying, where is it going to be burnt? And she said, I think it's going to be taken away because I want where the fire was previously to be grassed.
Yes.
But then she decided we can do.
There was so much taken off that morning.
As it's November time.
And there must have been 16 to 20 people there.
Barbecue as well. So if anyone wants to go, they're more than welcome.
It was very successful, wasn't it? Number wise.
Good.
And the hope is to perhaps do one a year. Just to
keep it under.
She also said to me that she was going to get I don't know what colour you have, wheelie bin for garden.
Brown. No, I've got that.
Yes, she said she was going to get that so that there will not be, once this is all cleared, there will not be a pile.
There's at least 2 or 3 covered over who have been released.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Quite amazing.
Considerably.
Ideal for Halloween then.
So, well, it was.
We were thinking of Judgment Day actually, but
Paul was fantastic with his chainsaw.
Good.
Quite good fun actually.
Yes.
Right. And the
Good time was had by all.
On the 4th of November.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, hold on, Paul wants
Saturday
something.
evening.
We finished with the cemetery and church, but I was going to.
I was just going to add that, of course, since we on the new cemetery, we've nearly got as far as the transfer. If the clerk will go and kick the solicitors to actually do something in the next month or two, we agreed last month that we'd leave it to the clerk to start trying to get things in line with quotes and that. So. Along all the other things, that's the other thing you need to start.
Well, when we have, yes, it's
you
planning
can't go ahead
application
until you've got the
phase.
transfer, but you might start getting your ducks in a row, as they say, when you've got a moment, which you won't. Okay, you wanted to say something?
Working party, I was going to insert section H, which is the police and crime. It's just there's more that comes through. We'd already covered the fact that I will get in touch with the Police and Crime Commissioner to see if we can have some sort of joined up. Secondly, if I put a short piece together on reporting crime through the 101 website, put that in the Outlook. An item for noting, and some of you have seen this on the Nextdoor app, which happened as a result of what was pinched last week. The suggestion has been made that we investigate CCTV in the village that will pick up number plates, because the problem was when I reported it through 101 on the website, it's all very good, and then I get a thing back a day later saying, sorry, there's no evidence that we can follow up, so we're filing it. Pat Homewood made the point that possibly we could see if we can get some funds to support that. So it's just really for noting at this stage. I think we should put it on the agenda for next month. Meanwhile, I'll try and find some information that actually talks about costs and practicalities. Somewhere in Kent there will be other villages that have already done this. So rather than reinvent the wheel, at least we can look for.
We just put it on the main road, it's all put it on the side.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, someone suggested we put it on top of the speed things. You know, a bracket, but I don't know. I don't know the practicalities of it all, but I think if I can just gather some information that helps us make a more.
I think see what you can find out. I think the practicalities are actually going to be quite awkward. I mean, assuming we're allowed to, there are all sorts of things that can be put in our way.
But if you and I both came from Sevenoaks, the most CCTV town in the world.
Indeed, with a large amount of money spent on it.
Yes.
But we have got to find places which actually will catch things, because after all, if someone came by the way from Tenterden to yours and went back that way, obviously we're not going to catch them in the 30 limit. But anyway, if we want to do the 30 limit for argument's sake, we have got to find lampposts. We haven't got many, because they bring electricity, get permission.
This is not speeding.
No, I know.
There's
cameras, but you've still got to have electricity to run them. You've got to have a place to mount them. You've got to make sure if they go onto the smart lamp posts and turn them off at night, you still get your electricity. And you want number plate recognition, quite tricky. You've got to go and download the information probably every week, because you're not going to have broadband to send it over the internet. And you've got to have at least 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4 to cover the.
Well, I'll try and find out some information.
I think
there are obstacles. It's very good. There are obstacles. All I'm saying is it would be good to see, but don't hold your breath.
We kind of know who was responsible. Right.
Because other people saw them.
Well, because at Neil Robertson's house, they pitched up there. He's got a builder working on. They turned up and said, well, the Gov said we could take whatever you didn't want, etc., etc. And the builder, quite right, because Neil happened to be, he was off shift, he wasn't flying, so the builder said, well, he's here, do you want to have a word? What's the address? Oh, sorry, mate, we've got the wrong address. The Ashton Cobbs, they got approached, and it was all the same van with the 3 guys in it. But the problem was we didn't have any evidence, and the police can only work on what. And they made the point that if we could only have had the registration. In fact, somebody who I spoke to said, you know what, you'd be amazed, they're not that clever. They won't have changed the number plates. This isn't Chicago South Side. The van will be traceable. And then they'll deny this or deny that. At least that gives us a fighting chance.
Okay.
But there has been
even then the police haven't a great deal of difficulty making it stick.
Well, of course. Well, so at least we've done our bit.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you look into that, Paul, and see where we get to.
It would be a deterrent rather than actually effective at catching people, in my opinion, but I don't object to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we've got
Well, we could
some
start
time,
off
Yeah.
at Hotspot, at Potman's Heath.
I tried to forget that one.
Didn't we?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, you don't do
Let's
that.
move on. Outside bodies representatives. We've got you for the Village Hall Management
Yep.
Committee.
Our next meeting is the 21st of November, which is the AGM.
Did you?
No, it's not.
How are you
I'm telling a
doing
lie.
with?
Our next meeting is this month, but
How are you
after
doing with
that.
members? I mean, how are you doing with volunteers? 'Cause
Well, we've
we're
got
trying to
Steve
ginger them up. We've got Steve.
Schuregger from the
Yeah.
Film Society, who's our latest and only additional member, so we've still got the same
Is the
number of people.
21st of November is the AGM?
Is the AGM, yeah.
You
And
may not have picked this up. I mean, I only mention this because I saw her today and asked her how things were going. The house move for the Marchants has fallen down again.
Yeah.
So bad news for them, and I don't know whether they're going to carry
I'm
on
trying
the Village Hall, but
to-
they are still here for a bit longer.
Notwithstanding that, I'm trying to shift them along to
No,
actually
indeed.
pass things
Pass
on
stuff
and
on.
get things
Very
set
sensible
up,
rather than be caught.
check signing and all those
Yeah.
things, rather than
Yeah.
wait until it's going to happen.
But you
and
still
then
need
spend
people.
3 months doing it. But we still do need people. Yeah, we still need.
Have you got
help.
anyone from the Horticultural Society and the WI?
Well, does Rita? Is Rita?
Rita, but she's standing down.
She's gonna finish it at the AGM anyway.
You saw she's just advertised in the Outlook for people.
That's right.
Yeah. So no, we haven't really, but yeah, we still do need people. The major project that we've got coming up now is we're going to replace all the lights in there with LEDs in the main hall. So we've just got
Safe
quotes
power.
in for that for that's LEDs.
In terms of trying to get these people, just a thought. I mean, the trouble is that you can ask people for help and advice, and actually all it does is give you more work and no result. But there is the Volunteer Bureau who are saying that that's their business of trying to help people to find volunteers.
Yeah.
And I did pick up, I mentioned this to Yvonne, I did pick up one, and to Roger, did pick up one thing that they said, I think it's in the note. They said never ask for someone to volunteer, always ask if they can help.
Yeah.
They said they've done, there's various bits of evidence that show that it is far better results to always ask people, can you help?
We get people if there are events, like if we're painting or clearing something or running an event, there's always people willing to come along and help then. What we need are people who are going to sign up as trustees.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think that's the
And you're
key
going to
issue
do
that
the
people
work
don't
on the
like.
legal, of course, still.
Yes,
aren't
we're
you?
still doing that.
Okay,
Can
good.
you make sure you send the date for the AGM?
Yes, I'll
as
send it.
well?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll just check it with Jeanette first,
Yeah.
just to make sure.
Yeah.
I'm right.
Okay. Next planning meeting to be advised. Next full council meeting is the usual Tuesday. Items for information. The annual parish forum, I gave you a written report, so I don't think, unless you've got any queries, there's anything else to be said. In terms, I thought it would be useful just to sum up things that are going on at the moment. Apart from the chairman's conference I went to and that parish forum, Yvonne and I are going to the finance conference this Thursday. I'm going to the highways seminar with KCC on the 1st of November. Paul can't come this year. I'm going with Roger Parker to the community transport seminar on the 9th of November, and I'm going to the Calc AGM on the 11th of November. You see how exciting it is? It's always bad at this time of year, to be honest. There's always a run
Most
of
of your
them.
opportunities.
Yeah, well, indeed, yes. Well, it's the only way I get a free lunch, if I'm lucky.
We don't
But-
want that finishing.
But it's recorded.
Yes, there are.
But the fact is that they're what's coming along at the minute, and we are doing them between us, to be honest.
Now I'm out of season in terms of my summer job. I'm more available to do some things like that, so I'd be happy to take
What you
some.
can do, if you wished, I wouldn't actually advise it in the sense that it's like watching paint dry, but not that exciting, is the Calc AGM.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Yeah, build it up for me.
It's at Ditton. Actually, to be fair, the mornings can be very interesting when we get speakers. They can be very good. The afternoon, the actual AGM part is
Have you not?
very slow.
No, you haven't.
Has it changed?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, it's all going to be in the morning. You've got 2 speakers in the morning plus the business, and then there's a buffet lunch. So you can't.
I can go to that. Yeah.
So you haven't got to say that you're going to have your
gala pie. I'm always on for gala pie. That way I can remember it.
Everyone's welcome to join me at the Rural Kent Randomly. The cakes are extremely good, as we're on the subject.
Yeah.
And the atrium is actually quite short, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's
early evening.
I've got some papers I'll drop off to you.
Oh yeah, we're not doing the rest.
So you'll talk to George about the atrium fit out.
I think the reason for it, we're going there.
Richard wants someone for the chairs
Right.
out.
Okay, that's all the things I know about information. I think. Should we go round and just read? Yeah, feel free.
I want to see the transport news.
Okay.
The truth of the matter.
Yep, no, that's all right. Thank you for coming, Mick.
Good to see
Let's
you.
go round
Take care.
with other items for information.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right.
Let's go round with other items for information. Paul?
No,
Mick?
nothing from me.
Nothing from me.
Colin? Sue?
No.
No?
Nothing from me.
Nothing from me.
No.
Oh.
Okay, the only other thing then, I just
Oh,
thought to keep up with it, I brought, it's not on the agenda, but the task list that we've talked about in the past, just to remind ourselves of where things are there. The small housing sites, that's obviously been overtaken by the Ashford plan.
Yeah.
Registering land holdings, we're nearer to that now because we're getting through on the cemetery, although the solicitors don't actually come up as being very lively. Branding PC assets, we've got to do the review of what we want to do and how. Churchyard wall we've talked about. Surface water drainage project, I reported before, I think it was just blown away by KCC, they don't want to do it, but the KCC's M&R is coming along, I'll see what happens. SIDS we're making progress, information files completed, voices we've gone through today, reviewing standing orders and financial regs all done, and we're now applying the standing orders part that we talked about today. Painting the village signpost, black hole. International Dark Sky Community, black hole, but ABC, definitely. And useful contacts we've got, and we've just had that and given out. And the FAQs is up to you guys to come back and say what you want done.
The decaying signpost.
That's what we just said.
Yes, no, we didn't.
Painting the
No,
village
no,
signpost.
Yes, that's not.
That's what I
no,
meant.
we talk about the
You
you
and
and
Lamb
Lamb.
Oh, that one, the decaying.
Yes, no,
well,
I'm-
they're both decaying.
Yeah, Alf doesn't think it's that dangerous, but I haven't actually got onto Ashford yet about it. It's on my list to do.
I was thinking of our one.
Thank you.
Nothing else? So I can close the meeting at only 9:30.
Well
In 2 minutes.
Well, if our meeting can't be,
It was actually